Hey, welcome to the latest edition of First Day Kopites podcast. Today, delighted to be joined by some familiar faces. We've got, in no particular order, we've got Daz, we've got Sean, we've got Ben, and we've got Hatitham. And great to see all of you. Today is, December 12th? Have we got the date right? 13th. Yeah, the day Liverpool went to Craven Cottage, drew with a Fulham team, which many people have told us are going to get relegated. Fairly disappointing performance, but what we hope to do in the next 30, 45, 60, well, anyway, the next period of time is look for some inspiration in what we've seen and try to pick what might happen next with the Reds. But before we get there, I want to make sure if you're listening or you're watching that you're aware of all the places now that our podcast is on. This week we're on Apple's podcasts, and Ben was unaware of this, so I'll share this. We're also on Spotify. And what's the podcast that you watch or you listen to, Sean?
Oh, it's on Pocket Casts.
It's
just an app that you can get podcasts on. But yeah, it's on basically every platform now, including iTunes or Apple Podcasts, right?
iTunes. Yeah, I think they're changing the name. That's why. Yeah. So.
The table.
Yeah. So expecting hundreds of watches of this. So good job.
Don't forget YouTube.
Oh yes.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I guess if you're watching this on
How can you
YouTube,
forget YouTube?
that might be a bit redundant, but it might be better to listen than to watch. I don't know. Just he says
Faces for radio.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So I was blocking my cue for one of the points I wanted to make, which might be really obvious. So we're gonna answer a few different things. We're gonna recap on the Midtjylland game, the dead rubber that seems to have sparked a lot of controversy about team selection. We're going to talk about Fulham, the game today, which Klopp described as 30 minutes which we could have lost, and then 60 minutes that was good. We'll debate whether we think it was quite that good. And then we'll do a few kind of things we picked up this week around the world of football, about some interesting stats about pressing and about crossing. There's probably a poem to be made in there somewhere. And then we'll look ahead before we're done to a big week. Spurs on Wednesday, and then Palace, the early game on Saturday morning, very early here on the East Coast, even earlier for you, Hatitham and Ben, I think. So there we have it. That's today's show. So let's start with Midtjylland. It'd be hard to not have this conversation without going to team selection. I'm going to start with Sean because I felt his anger from every different platform that he was on that I am connected to about the team selection. So we'll start there and we'll try to wind him back as to why this might not have been as bad as he thinks. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was just a much stronger side than I was expecting. I know a lot of people were saying that it'll probably be stronger than you think, but and I admit that, obviously Klopp and all the team doctors know a lot more about sports science, than I do, but the game was literally just meaningless. Like it had no impact on anything, and I just didn't see the point in even a little bit of risk of getting anybody important injured. I think there was some worry that if you put a bunch of kids out there, they'd get beat up and it'd be bad for them. But I didn't really see the point in playing so many significant, important players. And I think, it may have affected the game today. I'm not sure what happened today. They were way off, but some of our more important players seemed tired today because they played, a fair number of minutes in the middle of the week, and they had to travel. And I just didn't see the point in it. I mean, I'm sure there's some sports scientists out there that could explain the philosophy about like why they did it to me, but I just see it as a risk that wasn't worth taking because the game literally meant nothing. It's going to have absolutely no impact on anything, even the other two teams in the group. Yeah. So there wasn't even like a competition point of view to it, and there aren't even any fans in the stadium, so it's not like you're disappointing the fans either. So I just didn't get it. That was all. It just didn't make sense to me to play that strong side.
I think there is something in what you said, though, about he didn't want the kids to get beat up in case he needs Williams and Kopites Clarkson going forward. I do think that's a valid argument. I think one of the other things, and I'll go to you next, Daz, is, I mean, who else was he going to play actually that he feels any sense of confidence in based on his team selections, including the bench so far this year?
Someone raised a point on Twitter, and you get all your valuable information from Twitter, clearly, unless it's Facebook. And then after 30 minutes of that, you're willing and capable of doing open heart surgery. But someone said, actually, it might have been the rap. I know that we reference the rap here quite a lot, but I think that might have been one of them that said, Klopp just doesn't like to lose, and I think that he put out a team that was doing a fairly decent job. You could see that we were under the cosh for most of the first half, apart from that goal 55 seconds in. But then progressively we got stronger with each of our substitutions, and I think everybody was horrified. Like, no, stop! Like, if we lose this 2 or 3-1 in Denmark, does it really? If to harken back to what Sean was saying, it's like it's not even a psychological loss. Like, watching it, I was numb to it until we started putting better players on them, and I thought to myself, this is genuinely because Klopp doesn't want to get embarrassed. So there's no other reason. And Sean is correct in saying that. I think that you saw how it definitely impacted Trent today. Trent was not at the races at all. He was muscled off a couple of balls. He just didn't look his normal self. And Robbo, who for me has still been our player of the season so far, he just looks jaded. We were slow to everything today. It was one of those. I guess I mentioned this before, and I'm kind of tangenting to today's performance, but it's one of those team-wide swoons. It looked like everybody else is looking to the guy next to them to dig them out, and they were looking back at them like, "No, you're going to need to dig me out." And there was a couple of times that they're going for the ball. I was like, "Just put your foot through it," and they just dangled the leg there. A, you look like you're soft, and B, that's how you're going to get injured. You leave a leg in there like that, and someone comes through, you're going to be the one that gets hurt. In terms of going back to the overall question there, I don't know I don't think it was necessarily a question of trust. I think for Trent, in Trent's case, he wanted to give him minutes. And I think when Robbo came on, it was because of what happened to Tsimikas, or Tsimikas, depending who you ask. I think that drastically informed what the changes that he made. And does anyone remember seeing the tackle that injured Jota? Because I don't remember anything being significant enough to do 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks of damage. And I think what's that? Did you see it?
Yep, I do.
I don't remember seeing it. Look, and they were there to rough us up a little bit too.
Right.
And I think that speaks to your point, Paul, that maybe he didn't want to put the kids out there to have lumps kicked out of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily because he thinks he might need them. Like, Billy Koumetio's got a long way to go. He has all the tools. He's big. He's physical. He's obviously very good in the air. There was a couple of towering headers that he nodded away. But he's a good distance away from being anywhere close to a polished product. I honestly don't know. I didn't really look at the bench, to be honest. I thought that he'd just play the team that he had on the pitch, and then to a little bit of my horror, I kept seeing our starters going on into a game that that literally meant nothing.
Yeah. I do think there's something though about like it was forced into some of the changes clearly, with Jota and with Tsimikas, if that's how you say it. But I do think that they were most under pressure at the beginning of that second half, and that's why you're thinking about Henderson on, for example, in that situation. There were some bright spots, though. Not that we much was talked about that, but just in terms of, Kelleher, clearly is well. Here's what I would say is, if I'm Sheffield United, I'm kicking myself that I didn't go get him instead of Ramsdale, who I think is going to get them relegated. So, Ben, I'm going to go to you. You can talk about good points. Really easy to pick on bad points, right?
I think what I will do is pick up where you're talking about Kelleher, and I posted this on our OLSC Facebook that a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Adrian, but from all we've heard, he's been very supportive of Kelleher as a professional and as a teammate. And, you know, when we signed him, he literally was just in a park in Sevilla training by himself, and he came on and won the Super Cup, won the Premier League, and won a lot of important points. So that's something I wanted to point out too, that he's probably not going to be here beyond the next season, but as we think about our time when he was with us, we should think of it fondly, not but with warts and all. As far as the team selection, if you look at the Champions League squad, it was tough to come up with 10 outfield players, you know, that are 15 years old to play in the Champions League. And there are some arguable spots where we could have played some other players. But I do think that Klopp sees it more that it's better to keep the players in getting minutes in professional situations and in the Champions League, right? I mean, they want to play in the Champions League. They don't get to. And for instance, you know, Diogo Jota, I mean, Wolves never played in the Champions League before he came to Liverpool, right? So we don't know what he's saying to Klopp behind closed doors. We don't know what Salah is saying, you know, where he had his chance to play in the Champions League, arguably, and then didn't. And then he came to Liverpool, and this is why he wants to be there, is to score goals in the Champions League. And so it comes down to an issue of, you know, how do you best manage those men, perhaps not physically, but psychologically. And, of course, we saw the result with the injury to Jota. But on the other hand, there's so much we don't see, and we don't think about until maybe you're somebody that has to manage employees even, and think about how maybe not everything happens just the way you want it to happen, but you also need those people to keep coming to work, right? And so that's probably the other side that we don't see and probably doesn't get talked about enough.
By the way, you said, I'm not sure what Salah's saying to Klopp. I think I'm pretty sure that Salah is saying to Klopp every time a Champions League game comes around. I mean, because he's like the face of the Pepsi commercial that's all over the, like, I'm pretty sure he's saying, I'm playing this one. Don't take me off. I'm playing this one. Which actually brings me kind of nicely around to, I think one of the other positives is Salah just broke Stevie G's Champions League goal scoring record, which is no small feat. Clearly he's going to, well, that's something, well, I don't know, clearly, is he? I think he's going to break it by a few before he's done. You know, even if he doesn't stay after the end of this season, who knows? So Hatitham, what did you take away from the Midtjylland game? And we haven't even mentioned VAR. Oh, good grief.
I totally, I kind of side with Ben. You know, glass is half full all the time. So a couple of points. You know, Ben's point about, you know, what happens behind closed doors, all of that stuff, you know, that's something that we don't have any visibility to. So I'm you know, again, just going back, and Ben, sorry to repeat your points, but going back to that, you know, a lot of these players, they won the records. We saw what Salah did when he was taken out of the, what was it?
Brighton game, I think it was.
Yeah, he almost punched Henderson on the way out and didn't even look at club. So we're not, I mean, from a management perspective, I managed people in the past, and that's a lot of stuff that you see, and you're juggling a whole lot of things. From an injuries perspective, I mean, we all know football is a contact sport, and I mean, it happens. Sometimes it happens in practice. Sometimes, you know, a player gets injured just running around without any contact. So, you know, putting myself in the gaffer's shoes, you know, you just, again, do your tactics and put together your game plan based on who you have available. You're not, I understand, time management and the data science behind it, how many minutes has each player played. I understand that aspect of it, but at the same time, I respectfully disagree with you, Sean, about just, looking at injuries and all of that stuff. If injuries happen, they're going to happen. There is no prevention. There's no potion or something that, you can give to players to prevent injuries, even if you keep them in a closet or wrap them with, foam or whatever. So that's just part of the game. The last piece I want to talk about, going back to what was said about, putting the kids out or whatever, and not destroying their ambitions and all of that stuff. If you go back last year to the Villa game in the FA Cup, where he just put a squad of young players and they got demolished, by Villa. And this is the Champions League. So as far as playing the kids, I think putting in, 4 or 5 kids in that match, was made a whole lot of sense. But again, just the other factors that I talked about, I think just went into the game plan and all of that stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just watch it, enjoy it, whatever happens, they're going to deal with it. Just enjoy what's happening.
I'll defend Sean a little bit, though, because there are overuse injuries. And I think that's what a lot of people are. You see like a lot of soft tissue injuries now, a lot of muscle injuries, because there's a lot of players that are playing in the red. Like when I saw Andy Robertson's one of them, like he's turning into being a model of modern, a miracle of modern science. Like it's almost like he was grown in a tube somewhere, because he just seems to be able to stave off. I watched him twist his ankle in that game too, and I thought, oh Christ, here we go. But and I think in Sean's defense, you're right that there's very little that you can do to stop a contact injury from injuring someone, but you can remove them from that situation. And I like, you're right. I'm not a sports scientist. I don't even play one on TV, but I think that there is something to be said for the amount of minutes that some of these guys are putting in their legs, and the necessity to put more on them to potentially create that extra strain, especially since most of the stuff that you're seeing now is hamstrings, like a lot of pulls and then micro tears and full on tears as well. And a lot of that can probably be mitigated by giving them the week off. But then having said that, Genie had like a pretty decent amount of rest, and he came back to he wasn't at the races at all. It's almost like the guy needs to play every 3 days to stay sharp.
Yeah. So that
I get a lot of that. I just, and honestly, like, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Jota or Tsimikas start. I was more shocked to see like Salah and Fabinho starting. That's really what worried me. It was like, whoa, why are we putting these guys on? And even Henderson playing as long as he did. Like, we can't afford to lose those guys right now. It's those guys that worried me more than anything else. But I mean, I get all that, and there's a lot more to management, than just managing the numbers and all that. Especially with Klopp, the psychological part of it's big with him. But anyway, I was fearful of everyone playing, that many minutes in a game that really meant nothing.
No, I get it. I get it. Just, a little tangent, but it's related. I heard the most ridiculous. I don't know if you guys heard it today on the NBCSN punditry, which was shameful.
There's a crack team they have this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So they had a conspiracy theory, because they asked the same question. Why, if Klopp is, bitching about the number of minutes and the time between matches and all of that. So why is he playing his players that many minutes, the players that you mentioned, Sean, and one of them, I don't want to mention names, it basically triggered me to send a tweet directly to NBCSN. One of them said, well, this might be a game by Klopp to try to prove a point. And I'm just like, seriously? That's the best you could do. So it's just, like I said, there's a lot of idiocy out there, and it is what it is. Like I said, we're not seeing anything that's happening behind closed doors.
Well, I'm sure glad I listened to Hot Mic today with the Anfield Rap Boys, not NBC, because both those guys really don't like Liverpool. When you've grown up in Manchester United's youth system, the Higginbotham guy, and you played for Manchester United, what good things are you really going to say about Liverpool? Anyway.
Plus, his name's
Played for Manchester United and Everton, right?
Yeah, the other guy.
So I think we're already into this, but let's talk a little bit about Fulham. Again, I started with Klopp's quote, and I know Henderson said something slightly different, but Klopp's quote was, in the first 30 minutes we could have lost the game, but he saw the last 60 minutes as good. Maybe I'm just too close to the game, but I didn't quite see it that way. What was your take on today's game, Sean?
We weren't very good. I thought the first.
You're hired.
It's one of the
Tim Howard's
worst.
got nothing on you.
In terms of like overall performance, I think it's one of the worst I've seen under Klopp. It was just awful. I don't know what. I mean, it almost makes you worry that there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about yet, because it was just really odd. Everyone was off. Like you had mentioned Trent and Robbo, Daz, but like I thought Henderson, Ginny, a lot of players were off. I thought Bobby wasn't as good today. He's been better lately. He wasn't as good again today. I don't know. It was just a bad one. But I thought we were worse in the first 30 minutes than we were in the rest of the match. I thought we were still pretty bad for the rest of the first half, and then we were better in the second half. Like we dominated the match in the second half, but we still weren't creating a lot of chances. So I don't think it was very good at all around. I know, honestly, I think we were fortunate to get out of there with a draw. So
a couple of things that probably worth addressing is Matip left at halftime, which in theory should have made us weaker, and I actually think we probably played okay in the second half. But one thing that I find really concerning is the front three. They're really not creating a lot of, even they're not scoring, but they're not creating a lot of clear-cut chances for each other in the way that they were last season. Like Salah's goals in the last few games of not, no one in the other parts of the front three, Firmino and Mane, is assisting. So I think Ben was leaving us.
That's the light.
Okay. So Daz, Fulham away should be a 3-pointer every time, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I was actually thinking that after the game. It's like, and I think I tweeted something to that effect. Is like this implies murderous intent with the team that he actually rolled out, and to have that be the result was jarring, to say the least. Yeah. I tossed my F-bombs, and I might have thrown one of the dogs out the house too when Bobby Firmino dropped into the number 6 role and passed it directly to one of their guys in a diagonal ball. At that point, I was like, I had to step away and think about something a little less angering. That threw me more than Divock Origi heading it out for a place kick, and then 147th minute. Like, wow.
He won the header.
What's that?
He won the header.
Yeah.
There wasn't anyone on them, was he? I think he was all by himself.
I did see online somebody said, "Hey, look, at least he jumped."
Yeah.
But that just made me laugh. That's why I pointed that out earlier with Divi.
And I said as well, like I think that we sometimes forget that in a more kind of 30,000-foot view here is like these are human beings that we're dealing with, and I think that last year and the year before that kind of has tainted our expectations almost irreversibly, because your expectation is that you go down a goal, you shove 3 back at them. And I think Klopp might be referencing the first 30 minutes. We were woeful. It was second to everything. Didn't seem like we were interested. It was one of those matches where you're like, that's only fucking Fulham, isn't it? Come on, I say the F word. Does Apple allow that?
I have to change the rating of our podcast now.
From R to Daz.
It was never for kids.
This is rated Daz. So, but I think that we forget sometimes that they are allowed to have stinkers, but it's been such a long time since we've seen something like that where we just haven't been able to shake it off. And I think we do need to tip our caps to Fulham. They came with a game plan. I can guarantee you that Scott Parker, with his Streets background music, was had something on the wall for everybody, like that show these, that were because they haven't been mugs in the last couple of games. I watched a few of their games. They haven't been terrible. I think they acquitted themselves quite well against City, even though they went down 2-0. They closed up spaces. Those guys are going to sleep for 3 or 4 days after that performance because they just didn't stop.
Yeah.
So tip your caps to them. I think we definitely had enough on the pitch to be able to do something to be better. We just weren't. We just felt like, and I think I said this to you before, it's like everyone was looking around at everybody else like, what are you going to do today? And then the one bright spot that I will say is watching Jones pick up the ball inside our half and weave through was very, very Steve McManaman versus Celtic-esque. And if that had gone in, the Dogs would have come back inside. I would have mopped up the tee. I would have taken back the F-bomb. It would have been a good F-bomb in a good way instead of a miserable one. I think we said this last week as well, or 2 weeks ago, we wouldn't have been disappointed if we had gone in 2-0 down at halftime. And I think another thing that we need to be a little bit aware of and wary of, not wary of, but cognizant of, is like we just don't seem to be burying chances anymore. That half turn by Mo, that should have anywhere but there, and that was going in. I know that Henderson doesn't pop up in those positions all that often, but he tried to be clever and go short side when it was clearly better just to go across the goalkeeper in the far corner. There was a couple of the one from Jones. He took a snapshot at the top of the 18-yard box. It's just we weren't sharp. And so for Klopp to say for 60 minutes, I think we looked good. Probably 5-6 minutes at the end of the first half, and then probably from 60 to 75 we looked good. And then I think that you could see Fulham slowly start to claw their way back into the match. They had a couple of opportunities from dead ball situations. They caught us on the counter a couple of times. A better team probably would have finished one of them. I know that he's probably doing a little bit of damage limitation and mitigation by saying that for the benefit of his guys. But I think that the evidence is there for everyone to see that this is by and large a forgettable performance. I think another point is that I think maybe some of our guys got caught looking towards Wednesday. They brushed this off like, it's only Fulham. So it took them 30 minutes to realize like these guys aren't stopping. When they scored their first one, they quite easily have put 2 more in after that.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot in that. There's a lot to pick apart in terms of what could have been better and some of the performances. But I do think there were a couple of bright spots, and so the chance that Henderson had was created by Minamino's persistence around the edge of the box. I thought he actually looked more at home today than I feel like he's done in a lot of games. I actually thought so actually Neco looked better than Trent when he came on. Personal opinion, but so Ben, let's get your take. Probably throwing a few different things in there.
My take is that this was exactly the match that we signed Thiago Alcantara for, and he would have made a big difference. I am actually an attorney by trade, and I really don't know anything about soccer tactics. But I felt like, especially on the left-hand side, that Mane, Firmino, and Robertson really didn't have a clear idea about what each was supposed to do. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of think after they scored, they were kind of almost playing 5 at the back, at which point I think your number 9 has got to be pushing the line, right? If he's coming back, he's really letting all 5 come up, right? And so then Mane is sometimes coming in when he should be out and sometimes out when he should be in. And I thought that through all 90 minutes, even in the second half, we weren't really sure what anybody was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And it just seemed like people weren't coming into space with the ball. I thought that Curtis Jones is the man of the match for me, that he picked up the ball, ran with the ball, was able to get the ball, and definitely would have been a 9 or a 10 if he would have scored. But again, I think this is where we miss Thiago. This is, where we can hold the ball, pin somebody back. And someone on the pitch that, I don't know the man. I've never spoken to him, but it seems like he really does understand tactics and where the ball is supposed to go. And you would think that maybe he would be somebody that could straighten out. If Bobby's, pushing the line forward, then we need, Mane to come in a little more, or Salah to come in more. And I just thought that's what I missed today is Thiago. And hopefully with the new year, to better things for the bottom half of the table.
This is why we love having you on. Always the kind of optimistic takeaway from. Hopefully, you'll have more of that when we talk about the upcoming games. So, Hatitham, last word on today's disappointing result and performance at Fulham. Trying my best to find the high spots with Curtis and Neco and maybe Taki and Neco. What was your summary?
To me, this match was basically this. It felt the same way to me like the Villa match, except this time we had Alisson, and I believe if Alisson were not around, the scoreline would have been comparable. I know they had a few chances, not as many as the 7 goals that Villa scored, but. I think had they scored, if it was a different keeper, I'm not going to name names, and they scored a goal or 2, it would have been worse. So my man of the match is Alisson. He's just a rock for us. Although in the second half he was, except for that first misunderstanding between him and I think it was Roberts or whoever, where he kind of blocked a shot that the defender missed. But otherwise, in the second half, I thought he had a quiet duty. Looking at and I watch a lot of matches this weekend. Chelsea lost. Spurs drew. The only team I think out of the top 4 that had a decent match and scored a lot of goals was Leicester. So. I try to be like Ben and look at just the big picture, and we're still in second. We had a bad match. It's again just like the Villa match. It was a blip, an anomaly. For whatever reason, players tired. Just the size of the stadium, all of that stuff. But yeah, it was painful to watch, but at the same time, the outcome isn't that bad at all, except for the injury to Joel. I'm not sure how that's going to unfold.
Back spasm.
Yeah.
They said that he could be back for Wednesday. See, okay. Positives.
Oh, nice. So we'll get on to talk about Wednesday and next Saturday.
That's a good explanation for it anyway, though, because I was like, well, then why did he come off? But a spasm would do that.
Because he's Joel Matip, I'm imagining.
Right.
Like get him off before something more serious happens. Right?
By the way, it is our fault. The last time that we played at Craven Cottage, we had 3 members from our club there. So,
oh, wow. Huh.
They wouldn't let us in this time, despite our many efforts to fly to South London. But, yeah, we're sorry.
I don't know why. I do enjoy that stadium, though. I enjoy it's a weird thing. I just like their stadium.
Everyone that goes there seems to have the same. I guess it's the rivers and how quaint it is, but it looked kind of like a little league park. And every time that those guys were talking about the construction that was going on, it was the makeshift commentary box and having to go and collect the ball from scaffolding and so.
Actually, I've not been to that stadium, but the Anfield Rap guys were talking about Divok's header in the 93rd minute, making it into the Thames, but which I thought was kind of funny. So they also did say to Ben's point, so I don't think you need to feel bad about having been there, that Liverpool needed a crowd actually to kind of boost them at various points in it, and there's something weird about playing, even if it's just 2,000 people in a home of a completely partisan group. So,
can we talk about Mariner? I guess we didn't touch on VAR at all, and it seems to be there was 75 minutes of reviews between the two games that we had.
So I think our next round was going to be about topics in the wider football world. I think we can talk about VAR. Yeah, it's go ahead.
Well, I don't know if this is what I'm going to say. I don't really want to talk about it and spend 17 minutes talking about it, isn't it?
Which is less than they've consumed of our life in review time, right?
Yeah, put me on the clock. We do like what the pardon the interruption, 30 seconds rant, 30 seconds.
If it's not clear and obvious, we need to move on.
Thank you. And I'm done. We were told that this wasn't going to be a sixth official making calls. Like Mariner didn't see it, and they made him stop. Like it's not egregious. It wasn't clear and obvious. And what did we spend 2.5, 3 minutes looking at it? He went and looked, because as soon as he went to the screen, I was like, oh, this is Mariner. He's going to give it against us.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then I think that shove was Albi Moreno-esque. He was notorious for for extending his arms in challenges from behind. And you clearly see, and Mariner watches it, you clearly see the defender straighten his arms, and Mo makes an absolute meal out of it. Don't get me wrong. But if that happens in the middle of the park, that's a free kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, so it's 6-1, half a dozen the other. They deserve to be one up, but not in that fashion.
Yeah.
That ball should be on the ground going the other way.
On Tuesday, Klopp did. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I'm forgetting now. Klopp did specifically say, "Okay, I'm done with VAR. It's not solving any of the issues we thought it would. If we took it away, I wouldn't be unhappy." And there were enough people complaining about him commenting on this because he liked VAR when it first came in. And it's like, aren't you allowed to change your mind about something that didn't quite work out the way you thought it would? No.
And say that I think that was a penalty. Like the number of times I've seen penalties given when arms, what's he supposed to do? Like he's in a wall. Is he supposed to jump with his arms behind his back or behind his head? It's like, it's a natural, there's nothing more natural than trying to protect yourself from getting drilled in the face by a 65-kilometer-an-hour shot. I've taken a few in the face and it doesn't tickle. So you can forgive the guy for bringing his arm up. I felt very much like that was Mariner with a makeup call, because that was absolute garbage. Anyway, I'm done.
End of conversation on VAR.
VAR?
So maybe we're finished with VAR, but maybe we're not. But thanks, Daz. We're gonna move on. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there this week about the amount of pressing in the Premier League has gone down significantly. Aston Villa being the only exception. Hasn't gone down as much with Liverpool's front three, according to the stats from before this weekend's games. There was also a lot talked about in terms of crosses this weekend after Arsenal apparently had 44 crosses against Spurs last weekend. Apparently they're leading the league in crossing. But the article I read by Jonathan Liu in The Guardian talked about it defining crossing in such a broad way being unhelpful, because there's good places to cross from and there's bad places to cross from. And Arsenal apparently do a lot of crossing from bad spots. Although he also said if they'd made one more cross, they probably would have scored, because on average you score one goal from every 45 crosses. So Ben, I'm going to turn to you.
And you just let me know when you want to hear my pick-me-up sermon. Is this the round or is there one more round?
Oh, we're doing one more on going forward. Yeah, this is just, kind of what else is going on out there. I think, VAR is shit the way it's being implemented. That's the summary of the last piece. And No?
You know what? I'm actually going to do a part 1 and part 2 of Happy Time. So part 1 of Happy Time is if you feel bad about where Liverpool is after their draw to Fulham, we could always think about Roy Hodgson, or you can see its modern equivalent in Arsenal, right? I mean, they are. I don't. The thought is, are they going to get rid of Arteta? But then who would they hire? It's Daz is up to coach Arsenal. So we have problems. It could be worse, but you look at honestly Arsenal, that is another one of the classic teams of the Premier League and of top flight English football, and how far they have to go and how well they're going to have to be managed for many, many years. And we're okay. We're going to be okay. The other thing I want to highlight is, I think I've said this on this podcast before, is that our Liverpool Supporters Club met for the Manchester United match in November, December of 2018. So the whole time we've been getting together, we've lost no matches at home, right? And we've lost, maybe once to Man City, and then to Watford, and I don't forget who else, right? And so Villa. And so won the Champions League, won the first Premier League, first top flight title in 30 years. I mean, we have to not be quiet in the moment, I think. It's going to be okay. Drawing at Watford is not going to be the same as the draw to Everton was in years past, where we dropped the title by 1 point. All the teams that are in the chase for the title are going to have their draw to draw to Fulham, and it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Sounds good. So
press stop recording. We're done. We're good. End it.
So before we do that, Hatitham, well, from around the world of football this week, I've kind of thrown out a few things in there in terms of stuff that I've read. What's your what topic do you want to talk about?
I think just going back to the crosses that you referred to earlier, and Arsenal and having that number of crosses. I kind of watched them today, and they were, unfortunately awful. I have a lot of Gunner friends, so I don't want to say anything bad about them, but
good. They've got good news. That Aubameyang scored, right?
No. Oh yeah, he did on goal.
In the wrong goal, right?
But even
that's cruel. You bastard! That's just cruel.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, even looking at our crosses, from whoever today. I know we had a really bad match, but it just seemed like all the crosses were just, there was no thought behind them. It was just, cross this ball forward, and hopefully someone would get to it. And I think it was part of the an easy flow that we saw between the front three and whoever. So yeah, crossing the ball, you can cross as many as you want, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be an outcome or an output. I think that's the only thing that I can say about that. The only other thing that I wanted to say, and it's a little kind of different from the topics we've been talking about, but I'm sure you've all heard the controversy about someone being with a PhD should not be called a doctor and all of that stupidity. But I just wanted a shout out to all the doctors in our data science team, led by Dr. Ian. I hope it's Graham and not Graham. So shout out to them. There are a few PhD guys, and they're all doctors, in our Liverpool FC data science team.
Looking for them to come up big this week. So Sean,
they always have.
Yeah. So Sean, and we haven't even touched on what this is all going to mean for the January transfer window. But Sean, I realize I missed you out in the whole like one thing you wanted to talk about this week that was connected, maybe not quite linked to the games, maybe it is linked to the games.
Well, I'll just build off of what Hatitham was saying. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read today on the whole doctor question that the word doctor is derived from a Latin word for teacher. So just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody can look it up and confirm it, but I thought that was funny given the criticism of the word.
There's a bit too much to die for us, but okay.
So, yeah, I mean, on the pressing, it's interesting to me. I haven't read what you're talking about, Paul, but it's interesting to me that City's pressing is way down. Yeah. I wonder if some of that is intentional by clubs to avoid injury, particularly with Pep. Maybe they're thinking if they can stay healthy, they'll hang in there and be there for the title later in the season. Right now, I'm really just very, very interested to watch over the next month. Ironically, I think this season's, I don't think it's always been branded, festive fixtures or festival of fixtures or whatever. I think it'll be really interesting to see how all these games play out, how injuries, if they occur, if they don't, who they hit, who they don't, and then kind of where we are in mid to the end of January, because I think that's going to really set the stage for the run into the title, probably more so than it does even in an average year because of the congestion of all the games. And I would expect that more of these clubs will be hit by the injury bug than they have been to this point because of that. So I'm kind of just focused on that right now, moving forward, kind of seeing how that all plays out. I think one thing that I will call out is that if you look at, to build on the positivity of Ben, which could be a book, right? The Positivity of Ben. I don't know. But
Ben.
If you look at where everybody is in terms of like a points per match basis, like no one's really doing very well. And so given all our injuries, the fact that we've been able to hang in there and we're still in first place, and if we win this match on Wednesday, which personally I think we will, I think we'll bounce back from these performances and come out playing very well Wednesday and beat Spurs, then we'll be in first place. And, I think if we can get through all these injuries somehow and come out in January and be in first place, I think we'll be able to pull out another title. But, particularly Chelsea, if you look at it, right now they're on average to finish with less than 70 points. So with all the hype out there, they still have a lot of tough teams to play. There's still a lot of the season to be played. So no reason for everybody to get upset yet.
So I think you've taken us naturally into the kind of last topic, which is the week ahead. And although these games are very close together, we then don't have another game for 8 days. So I'm looking at the festive fixtures and thinking if we can make it through these two games, then it ought to be easier. I don't know. I'm sure we were looking at Fulham away as a guaranteed 3 points. So, let's put that into context. So what are you expecting from the week coming up? I'm going to go to Daz first. Spurs, who are no doubt going to attack us like nobody else. Just kidding. They're going to sit with banks of 5, right? And try and hit us on the break. What are your expectations? Not just about the Spurs game, but Palace as well.
I think it's going to be a more grueling affair than any of us want to pay any mind to. But you know what Mourinho does against good teams? He's just going to play Mourinho ball. Yeah. You never know though, because Fulham came out. Honestly, I think you probably expect like a flurry first 5-10 minutes. He'll probe to see what he can get, much the same way that Fulham did today. Fulham caught us when we were having an off day. I still think he'll go for it though, because if you look at the way that Spurs have been scoring their goals, if they've generally pushed pretty hard first 10, and then I think over the course of the last 3 games, the first 3 shots have gone in. The first shot in all 3 of those games have gone in, except for this last one. Their strike rate is incredible. Like it's just whatever they hit seems to go in. They take 2 shots, 2 of them go in. I think that Klopp is going to be, he's going to have to go with what he's got, because you've seen the walking wounded. Now when people show up and they go to the fitness room, they probably have to wait for a bed. So in terms of who he's got, I honestly, you know what I am kind of excited about is Curtis Jones.
Mhm.
You know, I think that he's done enough. If he's healthy enough and he's fit enough and he can go again, I think once he grows into himself, when he first started playing for us, and this is a bit of a tangent, I remember I was like, look, this kid's one to watch because he likes to play the same type of balls that Coutinho does. He's always looking for those slide rule balls through, and the close body control, the way he drops his shoulder and how he pulls the ball in a string is incredible. But he seems to have, and I remember reading something like apparently James Milner's taken him kind of quote unquote under his wing, and he challenges him, and oftentimes he gets to him. Sometimes he doesn't like what he has to say, but he's like, "You're not going to jump for that ball, Curtis. You're not going to make that pass, Curtis." So you can see that he's not necessarily playing his natural game, because I don't think he likes to defend at all. I think when he was at Kirby, he was one way and one way only, and it was forwards. And you see he's shaping his game. I think if you can get him to start playing the type of game that he likes to play, I think he'll be able to pick Spurs apart. Because it's going to be there'll be no space. I think that the fans at Anfield are going to make a huge difference for us. Huge difference. Because you can see what happened when we played Wolves. Like, it definitely gave them that extra 5% that they were probably lacking against Fulham. I'd like to think it'd be a wide open game, but I think that we all know that that's not going to be. I'd love to see the scoreline be 4-3 to us, obviously, but I don't think that's in the cards. I think it'd be fairly grueling. And now that I've put that marker down, it's going to be wide open, and it'll be like 5-4.
Yeah.
Every time I make a prediction, that's absolutely wrong. It's a gift.
Well, I think there've been enough games this season where, you know, like the Wolves game, you would have said, "Oh, it's going to be really close, right?" They don't concede many goals. Well, apparently they do against the team that plays really well against them. So I think you could easily view it being really tight. But one would hope that the data analysts that Hatitham was given credit to are really kind of all over this and have figured out a way to beat the 5 fullbacks or whatever he's going to play, Mourinho kind of model of football.
If we can move the ball quickly, I think we'll pull them apart.
Yeah.
That was the difference today as well, because Klopp was losing his mind on the sideline today about not moving the ball quickly enough, because the gaps appear, extra touch, turn, another touch, and by that point everything's closed down. Because that's how you're going to beat these guys in the press, and it's going to be small balls between lines and quick movement, and I think we can probably pick them apart.
Yeah,
we could.
Hopefully. I'm going to Ben next, who's got the second part of his kind of message for the ages.
Yeah, I know that this is somebody we quote frequently on this podcast, but I'll turn to Frank Lampard, who said, quote, "I keep reading how we, Chelsea, had the strongest squad in the league. I don't understand it. Teams around us have won titles and have strikers who score 30 goals every year, players who won the Champions League." I think that even if we drop point at Tottenham, even if we would go down to third or fourth, it might be just the fire that everybody needs to remember. You know, this is a really good team.
Yeah.
And, they will get it in order. And, I mean, if you really think about who we've all lost and what we've all gone through with the crazy Premier League schedule, the crazy European schedule, I hope that Klopp listens to his advisor, Sean O'Neill, plays 13-year-olds against Villa, is out of the FA Cup, and we have a reasonable schedule in the spring, and, win a league and win the Champions League. I think that Lampard has a point here that these guys know how to win, and they just need to – and they still do know how to win, and they are winning. So just keep supporting them. We'll do it.
Like that. So when he says teams that have won the Champions League, I'm thinking that's a singular, right?
Yeah, I think
team
so.
that won the Champions League. So we really haven't talked about that at all, right? We're 7 games away from winning number 7. There we go. Absolutely. Hatitham, week ahead. To be honest, I'm a little bit more concerned about Palace at 12:30 on a Saturday than Tottenham, which maybe foolish of me, but I kind of see that as like a tough game. I know what team you pick when you've already said people don't have 72 hours to recover; they're not recovered.
So I watched the Tottenham Palace match from today. Tottenham was awful. I know, can't remember who mentioned it, but it might have been you, Paul, that, or maybe there's Mourinho plays Mourinho ball against the good teams. But I mean, Palace, in my, own opinion, is not, they're an okay team, mid-table. And he played the same type of football. I'm just, you have all these players and you're parking the bus against Crystal Palace. So I did not get that. So obviously it's going to do the same thing with us. But again, the last couple of times we played him last year, we beat him. Even when he was at United, I think it was 1 out of 2 and we drew the first match or whatever. So I'm pretty optimistic about Wednesday. I think, even with if Ox can get some minutes Wednesday, I think it's going to be good. I'm not sure, I don't think it's going to be fit enough to play the whole match or even a full half. So him coming in, I think that's just going to add a little. Again, I think I'll echo the concern about the front three, and the disjointed flow that's happening up there, but I think they'll figure it out for this coming one. Again, it's basically although it's early, it's a long season, but it's the war for, or the battle for, first place. Saturday against Crystal Palace, I'm not worried about the rejects. It's a team of rejects, pretty much. So Benteke, even Zaha, who's good. Our left back or previous left back that plays for them now. I'm not worried about Palace. I'm not worried about Hudson. About Roy. Just look again. Just looking at history and the way we played either team, I think we're going to be fine. I think we'll win both matches, actually.
I like the sound of that.
So I didn't realize this, but Palace play West Ham on Wednesday too. That could be a brutal game, and that might have an impact on the side that we face on Saturday. It's not like they're getting a free pass. We're used to 3 games a week.
Yeah.
They are not.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I meant before about the fixture congestion for these clubs that aren't used to it. And West Ham's looked good lately. So.
So tell you who I do like.
That was very condescending.
They've got results.
They've got results. Can't dispute that. Yes. But the guy I do like, actually, having dissed Sheffield United, West Ham, and Arsenal in like 45 minutes. The essay is his name. The guy they got from QPR, Crystal Palace. I thought he looked
today.
He looked good. Right. Yeah. I saw a lot of that game because obviously we're playing them. He looked someone that you need to keep an eye on. Not so concerned about some of the other people, but he did look good. So. Look,
I think if we get to Harry Kane on Wednesday, a lot of he's kind of talismanic for them in a lot of different ways. Like the goal against the keeper made some incredible saves, and then to let that one in was. Yeah. It's just that guy, I guess. If you watch any of Palace's games, he's good for one howler. It seems like every game. But I think if we can get to Kane, I think it could be. We could starve them of not only service but kind of their juju too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think that's perfect. I think Sean, do you have the last word? I think you do on the upcoming week.
Well, I hope that Klopp is listening to our podcast and listens to
good authority and listens to us every week.
because I like
especially now we're on Apple podcasts. He's bound to be.
I like the idea of Curtis playing the deeper role a little bit in terms of picking the lock, because the game today, honestly, what stuck out to me is
he didn't hide. He did not hide at all today. He was always making himself available for the ball.
Yeah. He was great today, but what I was going to say is that we really missed Fab in that role in the midfield, because he did that a lot for us. He would sort of make that deep lying pass, playmaker role kind of pass, and open teams up. And we didn't have that. And then Henderson was playing back there too, so it wasn't as available to do the same kind of thing. I also think something that's been underrated, under talked about is how much we've missed Virgil and his long passes, playmaking.
Yeah.
And in a game like today, again, I think that would have been something big. So, but I think it's something we've been missing, and it's not a bad idea trying to play Curtis maybe in a deeper role in that kind of a game. It's an interesting thought, because I think he does kind of have that ability potentially. Spurs, yeah, I mean, I think they've been good this year in terms of being well organized. They do kind of park the bus. They play the back four with the two, defensive mids parked right in front of it. I would expect that to kind of be the game plan, try to hit us on the break with Son and Kane. But I'm just optimistic in terms of our intensity. I think we'll come out playing hard. I think being at Anfield will help. And, I agree. I think, like, normally I'd be more concerned about Palace than I am. I just I don't know. I'm in an odd way, I'm relatively optimistic coming out of the game today that the team will kind of pull itself together and push forward and get a couple wins this week. So
we do seem to rebound really well from these types of matches.
Yeah.
So it's again, I think that Klopp uses these as springboards to be able to re-energize, because he's been with us for 5 seasons now. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they always talk about Ferguson and how he had to keep shaking up his backroom staff. And then, so sometimes a message gets stale. And if you're just going through the motions every week and you're winning, there's not really that, all he's going to say is keep doing what you're doing. But now he's like, okay, look, we all clearly know our captain has said so much that you guys didn't come to play today. Like this doesn't happen against a Spurs squad. And that the people at the Scousers at Anfield will absolutely be 150% up for this, fueled mostly by Copperberg, I'm sure. But they're definitely that 2,000 is going to sound like 22,000 when they pull out in that pitch.
The other thing I want to say is that I do think the last couple of performances Taki's looked better. I think he is getting better. There's been a lot of concern about him not quite getting there ever. He's always been very active. I think it's been just sort of a weird time where he actually had 2 winter breaks. Then we had the lockdown, and then this season there really haven't been many training days. I hope he's finding some form, because we really need him right now with Jota out. It would be great if he kind of kicked into gear. And I thought he was pretty good today. I thought it was one of his better performances for us. So
yeah,
I think that if Taki, if I remember correctly, did he come on in the Arsenal game when we were down 1-0? Was that the one at the beginning of the season?
Community Field, or the
I think it was the cup game at the beginning of the season. We were down 1, and I think we shifted to a 4-2-3-1, and he kind of played like that, the role behind the striker. Yeah. When he was given more license to not have to track 45 yards to pick someone up. And to me, that was probably when we saw him at his best. And I think that's what he did for Salzburg too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think once we find a role for him that he's comfortable with, because it's much the same way. I think remember Naby Keita didn't look at the races when we first got him either. He seemed like he was a bit out of water, because he came from a team where he was Chingon. He was number 1. Everything went through him, and he was asked to play a different role. He probably asked to take a step back in terms of who he was. And when he finally got up to Klopp's speed, you started to see the player that we got. And I think that's probably going to be the same as Taki.
Mm-hmm.
So lots to pull together there. Just close with a few thoughts. I think Taki Minamino, rather like Keita, has better stats than you might think. So at the game against Midtjylland, he had 37 presses, and the next to him was Clarkson on 16. So clearly he was doing something that the coaching staff wanted him to do. Curtis Jones, I think, has been an absolute bonus this season, just in terms of his performance. And if you get a chance to look at the Athletic article where they talked about Victor Matos, the coach who connects the academy to the first team, what they describe in there is that they're really pleased that Jones has gone from being like the best player on the schoolyard at every level to like not trying to be the best player on the schoolyard in the first team, trying to be a first team player, which I think is absolutely huge. I think I'd close with is, I think you're right. 8 p.m. kickoff in Liverpool. That's probably going to people be in good shape, ready to kind of get behind the boys. So
Are the pubs open again yet over there?
they are in Liverpool. Yes.
Wow.
So that's a whole different story, but yeah.
Well, Gibber said he's going to have 2 meals in advance of this to be ready for it.
Substantial meal. That's right. Yeah. So I'll leave with the funny thing I heard. Apparently, there's a southern brewery that's making a beer called a Substantial Meal, which is apparently what you need. You need a substantial meal to go with your beer if you're ordering it in a restaurant, and they have named their beer Substantial Meal. Going to close it there. Hatitham. Well, Ben's gone, but thanks to Ben. Daz, Sean, as usual, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Check us out on Apple Podcasts.